Good afternoon. My name is Ronan Laffan. I'm Head of Advisory Services in version 1. And you're very welcome to our presentation today on migrating Oracle and other complex systems to Azure. So the question really is this a legacy technology challenge, or is it actually a business and IT opportunity for us? I'm going to be joined today by my colleague, Denis Fleming, a technology strategist from Microsoft Ireland. Hopefully you find this enlightening, and we hopefully give you a bit of food for thought as we go through. If you have any questions today, either you can raise them in the questions and chat section in GoToWebinar panel, or alternatively, you can send us an email. Any questions you have, either now or if you listen to this later, to our email address there, azurecloud@version1.com. We probably have got a lot of material to get through today. We may not get to the questions on the webinar. If we have enough time, we will, but otherwise we'll follow up with you after the event by any questions submitted. Okay, so I suppose we've a couple of things we want to run through. I suppose first of all, looking at the feasibility of taking the typical off-the-shelf or large, bespoke, complex applications that you may have today in your data center, and the feasibility and the issues involved in bringing those to the cloud. What are the considerations? What are the approaches that you can do to bring systems like that to cloud? And we're focusing very much on Azure today as a platform for which we can actually bring that type of migration and transformation. And we're also going to talk as a case study as much as anything else about Oracle and focus on Oracle type systems. It could be eBusiness Suite, it could be some other system like JD Edwards or other Oracle workloads, or they could be bespoke applications that you have built in your organization using Oracle database and other Oracle technologies, and considering bringing those into the cloud. I suppose a key thing here, before we even get into how do you do it, is why? What are the benefits? What goes beyond this kind of lift and shift? What can we get from doing this? And really beginning to talk about digital transformation. Okay, it's a piece of jargon, it's a tech term, but what does it really mean if we bring applications like this to the Azure platform? How can we actually get additional benefits over and above what we might have had when we ran them in our own data center? So if we can manage to cover all of that, we'll be doing well. Hopefully you find this useful and interesting in your own plans within your organizations. So first of all, before we ever talk about Oracle, why are we talking about cloud? And I guess there's a set of things people usually start talking about. Why cloud? They start with cost. Isn't it great and cheap versus data centers? Isn't it this infinitely scalable thing? Isn't there less to manage? Oh, it'll bring me all over the world with this global footprint. And it'll be highly resilient because we know that Google and Microsoft and all their services they deliver are highly resilient. Well, first of all, when we start talking about these core systems, maybe these aren't the right kind of conversations to start with. Maybe there are other things that matter, because actually, if we do this wrong, this could cost an awful lot of money. It could cost us a lot more in licensing, or it could even cost us a lot in run costs over and above a sunk cost that you probably have today in your data center. And you don't just instantly get scalability without doing some real work. And is there less to manage? Well, fundamentally, yeah, maybe. But it's a maybe. Maybe there's more to manage. There's a whole set of new technologies come into this picture. You don't get a global footprint without doing significant work. And resilience only comes with proper design. So all of these things that are thrown out there as justification for cloud, when we talking about this type of workload, we actually have to work for these things. And maybe they're not the right thing. Actually, do you know what? For me, there's much higher value things than simply talking about cost. Actually, cloud is where today innovation is happening in IT. And this is through advanced platform as a service services, such as you can see, and we'll talk about some of these examples today in Azure. It is where if you were to buy a new application today, most are being delivered as software as a service in the cloud native applications. It is also where trends such as DevOps and automation are happening. And yes, they're coming back to the on-prem environments first, but actually this is where the innovation is happening that's driving these trends that are transforming how we do IT. And the real question is, what does that mean to our business users? So the business justifications for that should be where we ask that, why does this stuff matter? So the speed of service delivery That probably is much more significant to us than most of the other things we're talking. That's why DevOps and automation come to the fore. It is about changing the relationship of CapEx and OpEx. So we don't have huge sunk costs in data center, and it does allow us to have scalability. We'll pay when we need to use it, and we'll turn things off. And that could be for our dev environments, for example. Maybe we don't run them 24/7. That's where, actually, for a lot of enterprises, that's where we get significant conversations that have to around how do we want to plan for how we spend money in IT and how we account for it. And actually, ultimately, if we do this well, we can get to business agility. We can add new digital services because we're using those PaaS services that are in the cloud. We're using and integrating with other external applications that might be SaaS. We're using modern techniques like DevOps to enable us to deliver faster. And at the same time, we probably need to live with what is in our ERP systems, in our financial systems. They really don't change that much. Fundamentally, Azure from Microsoft is a platform that allows us to gain access to all of these benefits and actually begin to transform how we do IT, even at these most common systems like financials and ERP and that type of workload. So, Denis, would you like to tell us just a little bit about Azure before we go on?
Thanks, Ronan. Hi guys, my name is Denis Fleming. I'm a technology strategist here in the partner team in Microsoft Ireland. I'm delighted to talk to you guys today on this webinar from version 1 on, I guess, why you should look at Azure as a cloud platform to move your ERP workloads to. And I'd also like to maybe delve into some of the possibilities that open up when you put your data in Azure. You know, some of those other services and technologies that can come into play that could provide new insights from your Oracle or other ERP system data that can then potentially help you innovate faster and potentially transform your business processes. So I suppose first off, I just want to lead out with Microsoft's mission statement. Not going to spend a lot of time on it, but really, you know, Microsoft's mission statement is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And, you know, how do we do that? So if we look, you know, in terms of our global size and scale, as you can see, I suppose the real takeaway here is the enterprise-ready performance and scale and global coverage. Azure has more regions than all the other main cloud providers put together, so 54 global Azure regions at the moment. If we look at it, we have 1.8 million miles of fiber in our DCs. We have coverage in 90% of the top Fortune 500 companies, and we are the most trusted and compliance cloud because we have more certifications than any cloud provider. At this point, I'm going to hand back over to you again, Ronan, and I'll be back later on to talk you through some of those possibilities that can open up when you do put your data into Azure and those services and technologies that can potentially provide you with new insights from your data. So Ronan, back over to you.
Okay, so thank you, Denis. I guess when we start thinking about people's enterprise architecture, when you start thinking about the core systems that they have, we like to use, in my team, we like to use this kind of model for 3-speed IT. At the heart of what we have core systems where fundamentally one business doesn't differentiate that much from others in their same industry. Financials, ERP, it could be the systems behind manufacturing execution. It could be many of those types of core systems. Relatively boring, you could say, but also very stable. And on top of that, we build operational excellence, where we actually grow value and begin to differentiate between ourselves and our competitors. And this is typically where we have the processes baked in for how we want to work as an organization. So there can be elements of workflow, the elements of structured processes that we put together, configured on top of core platforms. They may be configuration in those platforms, they may be extensions, but it reflects how we operate as an organization. And around about the outside of that is where we get to the systems of innovation. It can be things like the use of data, the use of knowledge. It can be exposing and integrating with third parties, with our customers, with our suppliers, with digital front ends. It can be today the use of IoT or other technologies like that, and how we integrate. So our data comes through the organization, down through our operational structures into our core systems to provide end-to-end experiences, end-to-end processes that are more efficient, effective. We've got better analysis. We're able to respond faster. And that is, if you like, this three-speed IT model. So imagine it a bit like the three-speed hub gears. At the bottom, we have systems of record, which is where the master data lives. And those systems evolve very slowly within the ecosystem, within our enterprise architecture. On top of that, we have the systems and structures where we put in and build our own processes, common services shared across multiple systems. Those evolve somewhat faster than core systems of record, but actually still relatively slowly changing, but are changing and should be changing and should be challenged when they're not delivering efficiencies to the organization. And on top, those layers of system around the outside, they are the systems of differentiation. They typically have a lot of IP, but actually you change those, you work out, you innovate. And if they're static, if you don't have capability to adapt to your environment, actually, then your competitors probably have an advantage over you. And this model is very important when we start talking about the systems, because it's clear that those outermost systems of innovation, systems of differentiation, they are today often delivered in cloud native ways. If we don't have our core data onto which we build those processes, onto which we feed those systems of differentiation, if we don't have the core data coming from the cloud, then we're creating ourselves a bottleneck by which actually maybe we won't be able to get that innovation, maybe we won't be able to get that value unless we bring that core to the cloud as well. And that's part of the reason that we're talking today. So what are those problem children, those systems of record? Well, as I said, typically ERP, financials. And if you have today on-premise, it could be any and many others beyond these that's shown on the slide. They could be on-premise versions of the classical Microsoft Dynamics products. There's a whole suite of Oracle products, from PeopleSoft through Classic eBusiness Suite through JD Edwards and many other acquisitions Oracle made. Or they may be SAP, Sun Accounts, many different systems. So the question is, why would I want to move? Okay, so yes, I can see what my target state might be, but what are the kind of triggers, first of all, for triggering something like that? Well, first of all, we see quite often people deciding on an overall strategy of go to cloud, possibly associated with a data center exit, or at least reducing their footprint in their data center. But actually, quite often it is because I want to get that innovation that use the data. It could be AI, but actually in most cases is innovation through more conventional forms of analytics that people want to do in the cloud, bringing my data together from multiple workloads, multiple systems. It may be because actually on-premise we have security management concerns. So sometimes, for example, exposing data out to partners turns out to be a challenge in our conventional structures, and actually building that securely in the cloud may turn out to be much more secure than trying to attempt to do it yourself in your own data center. But also actually modernizing, transforming as an organization of how we do business. Actually, what happens, we see quite often the organizations are trying to build new ways of working, new ways of delivering, new ways of servicing their business. And actually these systems of record, in some ways they hold them back if they are distinct and detached from where we actually build those modern processes, those modern digital ways of working, the systems of innovation. So bringing the lot together into the cloud is a trigger for this. Okay, this is a classic slide. It's the classic cloud support model. You know, if you today are running, for example, Oracle ERP, and you're running it on-prem in your traditional environment, actually you own everything from networking through storage and virtualization, all the way up to the top layer of the application and its patching. And obviously far and right, actually patching and everything to do with how that is configured in software as a service, it's no longer your responsibility. It's a service provided by a vendor, managed by the vendor, delivered by a vendor. And yes, you live with its life cycle. So if there's major upgrades, you have to take it typically because that is part of the package that you have bought. You pay it as a service. What we're talking about today is somewhere in the middle, the cloud support model of deploying existing off-the-shelf software, but not going all the way to software as a service, but seeing what we can do, what benefits we get from deploying to cloud. So cloud may remove how the physical networking, how the physical storage, how the physical servers are deployed. But actually, on top of that, we get at least operating systems upwards for which we own. And maybe in platform as a service, we begin to consume services for which actually we no longer even see the operating system or the runtime, and we actually deploy in our data, we deploy in our application, we begin to configure that and build out on that platform, and we've left responsibility. And it's important, responsibility is an important word because, for example, security, when we move to the cloud. Yes, the cloud can give us excellent security and a secure, scalable platform, but it's our responsibility still to configure that in a secure way. So the platform can be extremely secure, but it can be very unsecure or if we don't work right and work smart and build out a proper platform. So this is where things like reference architectures, proven patterns, this is where they actually allow us to effectively use infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and securely and safely go to the cloud. When we look at people's full IT estates, we typically review every single application and we apply what's typically called the OR model to the options for what may happen to any given system. So can that application be simply lifted and shifted and rehosted in the cloud from where it is today? Can that be rehosted potentially with some benefits, maybe beginning to use some platform services with a little bit of refactoring? Sometimes it does require, for example, to upgrade operating systems to make it compatible and support it within a cloud environment. Sometimes we may choose to re-architect or rebuild, especially if they're bespoke systems. Or alternatively, we may say, well, some of these workloads that you have today, we're not going there. We'll retire them and we may replace them, or we may just retire them altogether. So for every application, when you look at what are the options, you're going to find one of these ORs as what you should be doing associated with that application. So we take these systems of records. So for example, Oracle E-Business Suite, and we apply this type of analysis to it, we get very simply and very quickly to, well, we're going to end up with either rehost or potentially in the retire and replace. But you can't really do much in the way of refactoring, re-architecting, and rebuild. Now, why do we want to rehost? What's significant? Well, I guess the existing investment that you have made in these application platforms is the key. So there's a huge amount of implementation effort went into its original configuration, any additional customizations, extensions, integrations with other systems, the reporting you've built and configured on top of it, all of those things come together to be, in most organizations, a very large investment in these types of systems. And so it's not a trivial matter to say we're going to retire. Excuse me. Often the only option here is to consider rehost. And it's a very valid option because actually, for example, switching to software as a service not only be a very complex and expensive process, it's quite likely that it may not even give the functionality that you've managed to build through the customizations and extensions that you built on your current platform. So for many organizations, and especially when you look at something Oracle E-Business Suite, for example, if you're on the latest version of the on-premise E-Business Suite, you now have from Oracle a support path until 2030 with full support until 2030 laid out. That's a great place to be if you're a business, but the question is, can I begin to innovate around that and leverage that support path and get the most out of it? We believe rehosting, bringing to cloud, that is one way to do that. So the big challenges that are out there as you actually begin to do this, they fall around licensing, support, performance, and I guess connectivity to the rest of your estate. We have developed an approach to taking customers to the cloud for Oracle workloads and for complex workloads. We go through initial discovery, we begin to optimize what the future target state should be, which may not be the same as the starting point because things like licensing and licensing in the cloud may dictate some changes, or equally leveraging the benefits for performance scalability. Typically involves some flavor of piloting and then beginning the migration of all the other workloads into the cloud. So when we talk about core Oracle applications and are they supported in the cloud, absolutely they are. All of these types of standard Oracle platforms are supported in the cloud. And if we need to get to high availability or very high DR, disaster recovery type options, we can even go to supporting Oracle RAC, for example, through the use of FlashGrid on top of Azure. If we need to get synchronous data replication, we can use Oracle technologies such as Golden Gate, or we can use Data Guard, or we can use some of the other Azure supported data replication options that are existing today. So there's many ways we can take these type of workloads, bring them to Azure. When we talk about cost has to be something that has to be considered from the very beginning. How we optimize our licensing cost, because some of the biggest investment that you made is in Oracle licensing in your IT estate. There are many ways that you can structure and bring Oracle workloads to Azure. But you have to all from the beginning be conscious of how Oracle counts licensing, as with any environment, and how Azure keeps you in support and planning for that. So for example, this is just some spreadsheet type things, but fundamentally, if you're running Oracle Enterprise Edition, for example, a database, in general, it is appropriate to use virtual machines from Azure that give you hyper-threaded cores. They are good. They count to hyper-threaded cores as one virtual CPU in Oracle licensing. It's good. On the other hand, if you happen to be in standard edition, actually, it's not actually the same answer. Quite often, you're better off to have non-hyper-threaded cores, and then 4 cores count as a single socket. There is detailed expertise required to go through your environment, to plan, to optimize, to produce the best outcome at the least cost in terms of Oracle licensing as we migrate. Our software asset management team are prepared to assist alongside the architecture team in terms of planning, migrating like that. The other part is maintaining support. And again, you have to decide what versions of underlying operating system, underlying versions of database, underlying versions of app servers, etc., we're going to end up on. Obviously, we need to get off, for example, if you're running a Unix flavor, we need to migrate to x86 architecture, but that's true anyway. Most people's target future state for Oracle, even the state on-prem, on move to latest generation of Exadata, you'd be an x86. So this isn't an unusual thing exclusive to Azure or the cloud. It is the future for Oracle. You must make sure that you have carefully chosen Linux versions that give you support all the way up through the stack. But again, that is something that is easily done. Even if you're on 11.2 database, you can remain in support with a reasonable support path going forward. Very important in terms of justifying the investment you're doing. The other part is designing for performance. It's not just simply a matter of choosing appropriate virtual machines. It's not simply a matter of choosing disks. Actually looking at the overall networking, how you interconnect with other systems and machines, that is part of what you must do. As I said earlier, there are multiple paths to achieving high availability and high performance. You're probably moving from legacy hardware to an environment with lots of RAM, solid state drives on all of the storage. And we can get to active replication to other data centers within Azure regions and achieve very high performance overall. It depends on what your target architecture is, but we can get to quite often, you must challenge yourself whether I need, for example, rack, or can I achieve the performance and availability I require in other ways. And again, we come back to cost and simplification, and not just considering how we did things traditionally. Fundamentally, we've built out a set of standardized reference architectures for how to deploy Oracle workloads on Azure. We've brought production instances for clients, including Oracle E-Business Suite, JD Edwards, PeopleSoft, and other non-Oracle workloads in this way. And it comes down to having standardized patterns that give the performance, scalability, and disaster recovery capabilities that demanding businesses require. Proven, repeated, it brings those workloads into Azure and allows them to begin to connect to the rest of the Azure ecosystem. So I'm going to hand over to Denis. Denis, you might just comment a little bit on what is that ecosystem and what else people do once they're there.
Thanks, Ronan. So, hi guys, back again. So, I suppose first off, really, what I'd like to touch on is the concept of Azure as a platform. Microsoft has really changed its strategy over the last few years since our CEO Satya Nadella took over the reins. One of the first big things he did back in 2014 was announce to the world that Microsoft loves Linux, which, as some of you may be aware, was quite a departure from a statement made by a previous CEO, to say the least. But we really see ourselves now as a platform company, and Azure as that cloud platform to make our customers and partners successful using either our tools or the open source and third-party tools that you as customers want to use. So we see Azure as the platform that can enable that choice and option for you to use your own third-party software and tools when you want it. Our CEO Satya has been saying for a while that Microsoft loves open source, and it's not just a soundbite. You know, it is true. At present, believe it or not, 50% of all VMs in Azure are Linux. You know, we actually released our own Linux-based operating system last year, Azure Sphere for IoT. We've been the largest contributor to the open source community on GitHub for the last few years. So really, you know, we do see Azure as that cloud platform where you can run your Oracle or even SAP or other ERP workloads, to give just a few examples. And we're seeing more and more customers move those large ERP systems into Azure. So what can you do, you know, once you move your systems into Azure? Why Azure? Well, aside from, you know, the enterprise-ready scale and performance highlights we looked at in my previous slides, there's features like Microsoft Azure Active Directory that provides a full featured platform with capabilities for you to manage and secure identities for your organization. You're probably, if already using Azure Active Directory, if you're using Office 365, because that's the authentication service for Office 365. If that's the case, you're an Azure AD customer already. And not only can you extend your on-premise AD into Azure using Azure AD Connect for those hybrid scenarios, but Azure AD can help you connect your users to any app with seamless single sign-on and secure access from any location. You can safeguard user credentials using our zero trust approach and conditional access. So zero trust is a security model where the organization always verifies first before they trust a user or device. You can interact with customers and partners and grow your business with user-centric tools and modern collaboration, you know, moving your customers and partner identities to the cloud to provide them with better experiences and greater security. You can also accelerate the adoption of your apps. So as organizations move their identities into the cloud, more and more you need applications that you use and develop to integrate with your enterprise identity system. As I said previously, you know, we use open standards, non-proprietary, so it can be interoperable with other apps and services. So if we look at the next slide, again, quite a bit on it, but Azure has a full set of services to meet all your security management needs. You know, there's lots you need to manage and secure your IT environment, whether it's in the cloud or even on premises. We have a whole set of tools natively in Azure that help you manage the full life cycle of security and management. You know, I'll cover off some of the security capabilities protecting your data in the next slide, but besides that, we have management tools like Azure Backup, Azure Site Recovery, which helps in disaster recovery scenarios, and DR and Dev Test is a great use case as a first stepping stone if you are new to cloud, or even if you just want to test the waters. In terms of monitoring, we are bringing all the monitoring capabilities together in Azure Monitor, including application insights, log analytics, network watcher, and other monitoring tools. And we also have tools for configuration, patching, automation, and PowerShell scripting. We also have tools in the governance area around Azure Policy, which helps you centrally manage your policies, and Azure Cost Management, previously known as CloudIn, helps organizations manage and optimize their cloud spend. Plus, they're all built into our platform, so you don't have to worry about third-party integrations. The services are relatively intelligent in terms of they gather rich intelligence about your cloud infrastructure and resources with advanced analytics and machine learning algorithms, and they're hybrid, so they can extend security and management capabilities from the cloud also into your on-premise deployments. So I touched on security, and you know, this is a very busy slide. I could discuss this all day, but there's 4 key points I want to hone in on here. The first one is that security is bolted in, not bolted on. The concept that it's built into the fabric of the architecture. If you look at a reference architecture, it's clear, you know, throughout that. We also have a holistic security strategy. So we want to protect across all endpoints, be they, you know, IoT sensors all the way to the data center. We want to detect using a combination of targeted signals, and we use behavioral monitoring and machine learning, and respond, which is closing the gap between discovery and action, which is really key, you know, closing that gap between discovery of a threat and the action to remediate it. But, you know, one of the key points I wanted to take away here is we spend $1 billion a year on security. So that 1 billion makes Microsoft the largest security vendor in the world. You know, not a lot of people think of Microsoft that way, but we are all in on security and cloud, spending 1 billion a year. And, you know, another way in which we can help enforce that is through our Microsoft security graph. So we draw on an enormous amount of security information. We're bringing in signals from our products, global data centers, devices, Azure Active Directory, authentications, all into a single organized structure, which really opens up a unique view of the data. We then apply massive machine learning and behavioral analytics to allow us to find the anomalies and to identify the threats faster. So there's, you know, there's more details on the slide on the right, but they're the four main points I wanted to touch on. One of the things I discussed there was obviously our Microsoft Intelligence Security Graph. So it's the centerpiece of our investment in intelligence. You know, this is how we describe how we synthesize, you know, a vast amount of data from a huge variety of sources. I'll call out some of the figures there. Again, I'm not going to read through them all, but 750 million plus Azure AD user accounts, 1.2 billion devices get scanned, 400 billion emails get analyzed. The graph brings them all together as something that we can draw patterns and learnings across. So then we can then learn from one point of data to influence how we interpret another point of data.
And Denis, I'm just going to make one comment on that, which is that, you know, we've recently integrated, for example, Azure AD into e-business suite, providing single sign-on, native Windows authentication with single sign-on seamlessly in one of our e-business customers who's deployed in Azure. This connects completely into your e-business suite, becomes part of the ecosystem into which you're deploying. We're not just talking about a totally separate thing. This is security brought back into these types of systems we're talking about.
Exactly, Ronan, and you know, thanks for bringing that up. It's a key point. And moving on, you know, to some of the cost-saving features. So, I mean, key things to consider when you're moving to cloud. You should always look to right-size your VMs up front, you know, to lower cost. But there is lots of features to help you to be more efficient in your cloud spend. So whether it's low-priority VMs, you'll always have the ability to snooze systems during periods of non-use. We've features like archival storage and other low-cost solutions. There's some pretty compelling offers in there as well. You know, things like Azure Hybrid Use Benefit, which provide the lowest cost for Windows Server in the cloud, and reserved instances, which give a significantly lower pricing for a subset of VMs that you decide will need to be always on. Combining them in some cases can give up to a 72% saving on pay-as-you-go costs over 3 years. And then we have the cost and governance tool. So our Azure Cost Management tool, which was formerly Cloud-In, which we acquired, provides capabilities to help customers, you know, better understand and manage their spend, and Azure Advisor, which helps you optimize the resources for better performance, security, and costs as well. Again, this is a very busy slide. I'm not going to talk to a lot of it, but I just want to give you an overview of, you know, the scale of the broad platform and range of services that are available when you move your data into Azure, and, you know, what you can start to do with that data once it's sitting in our cloud. So it covers both IaaS and PaaS, and they work together along with the Azure Data Services just on the right of center. Also our analytics services, pre-built AI and custom AI. But, you know, bringing that back a little bit to something I discussed earlier on, you know, here are some high-level examples of how customers are innovating faster and transforming their business processes by uncovering those actionable insights from their data in Azure. So whether it can be you know, forecasting, demand forecasting, risk and compliance management, supply chain optimization, inventory management, product recommendations, predictive maintenance, cross-sell, upsell, even, you know, new business opportunities such as creating a product as a service or creating new products from the data and insights that they've derived from their services. So moving on, how do you turn that data into actionable insights? So Azure has several data services to choose from to enable greater business and operational agility from your Oracle workloads and other ERP workloads. Azure Data Factory, for example, is a fully managed data integration service in the cloud that can help with data movement to and from Azure in other to and from Oracle in other Azure services. You can use other services such as HD Insight, Azure Data Warehousing for data analytics, Power BI for visualization, and Azure Machine Learning for analyzing and building predictive models. And once you have this meaningful insight, you can then drive projects to take action on Azure as well. So you can build those apps, integrate with bots and so on, all inside of our cloud platform Azure. So not only does it provide you a solid infrastructure foundation for your Oracle and other ERP applications, but it also provides an intelligent cloud to get the most out of those Oracle investments. So again, at a very high level, some of the solution scenarios around big data and advanced analytics would be modern data warehouse, advanced analytics, and real-time analytics. So you may want to analyze current data and historical facts to identify potential risks and opportunities, or analyze current data and historical facts to plan for tomorrow in your organization. Predictive analytics in ERP systems can improve the competitiveness of an enterprise and determine, probable future outcomes or the likelihood of a specific situation occurring. We also have real-time analytics. It's also known as stream analytics, and it's the process of processing data as soon as it's generated in order to enable very quick analysis and insights for timely action. So some very high-level examples of real-time analytics here would be real-time fraud detection, customer behavior in stores, real-time demand and inventory management, real-time patient monitoring, etc., and smart grid. All of these become possible with stream and real-time analytics. So, transforming your data into intelligent action, as we've been discussing through, advanced analytics, real-time analytics, etc., etc., etc. How does that work? Well, really, you take your data from Oracle or another ERP system or any data source, apps, IoT sensors. You ingest it, essentially you store it, you prep and model the data, and then you can obtain those insights to drive those intelligent actions. You can visualize all of this using our analytics tools like Power BI, or even connect to a range of pre-built AI tooling like our cognitive services and bot framework, all of which either myself or Ronan will be happy to provide more detail on if you need it. So coming on to my last slide in kind of summation, why Oracle workloads on Azure? The three, I think, things I wanted to get across were the enterprise-ready performance and scale, which is key. We looked at that at the start. More data centers than any of our other cloud providers, global coverage, the largest compliance portfolio, extending your existing on-premise AD into the cloud, and availing of enterprise identity system like Azure Active Directory. There's greater operational and business agility, so you can burst to the cloud when needed. You can quickly spin up dev, test, and DR environments, automate processes, and you have all our built-in tools that we looked at already. Key, as I wanted to go through again, is you can apply Azure's big data and analytics services to your combined data from Oracle and non-Oracle sources to give insights that can help you innovate faster and transform your business processes. And last but not least, cost effective. So at the end of the day, when you pay for what you use, you can snooze it when you're not using it. Reserved instances and hybrid use benefits all contribute to provide significant ROI from Azure. So that's my last slide. On that note, I'm going to hand back over to you, Ronan.
Okay, so let's just summarize, I suppose, key takeaways of what we discussed today. Fundamentally, firstly, we can move Oracle and similar types of complex workloads to Azure. And if we're doing it simply, we should be doing it not just for cost, but because actually it's a better platform to run systems like this than the traditional data center environment. It gives us access to these platforms of innovation. Those drivers, that concept of innovation, that is key to the Azure ecosystem. Those set of services, those platform services, the integration with other systems in the cloud, that really should be the primary driver which we're trying to achieve by migrating to Azure. We can do it. We can do it with care, with picking and carefully planning to optimize. But once we're there, then beginning to use that ecosystem. So what are those things that we're trying to be looking for? They're going to be new digital services, how we integrate through portals with our customers, how we build specific extensions that are custom code sitting outside of the core application, how we use data within the platform. So Denis talked a lot about some of those types of services that you might use in relation to data analytics. We can make better use of our data, especially if we join it from data from other systems and we bring all to the cloud. And one of the things that's happening is we're actually deploying more software as a service today. And actually, if we leave behind our Oracle within the data center, it's harder to integrate. So actually, end-to-end integration of processes and the data across our system, it's easier and better done in the cloud. So the last point is, your future of IT is a federated set of services. Yes, there's no reason to throw away your core ERP systems, your core financials, your core manufacturing systems. Actually, they have a future, especially when they can integrate better. We can use the data better. We can add the digital layers, externals. We may be taking IoT data into them. Better end-to-end integration, better value of the data, better customization and configuration, and better tools to integrate with our customers and expose. That is the target. That is the future. And we begin to close down what we did in traditional ways. Whether we get fully into the cloud or whether this is a massive transformation, but you retain a hybrid, all of those things are options to be there. We can help you on that journey. We're more than happy to do so. So if you have any questions, if you'd like to come back with specifics to your environment, your application environment, your current state, absolutely come back to us. If you can send us on any questions, the email address there, we're happy to take questions at any stage in the next coming weeks. AzureCloud@version1.com. I hope that was very useful. I hope it was informative. I hope it helps to steer what you do yourselves. Thank you, Denis, and have a good